Hello and welcome to another episode of Montelibero podcast. My name is Birkin and today I'm in the studio with someone whose name is Alf Spannbeton. Did I pronounce it right?
Kinda.
Okay, how would you say it?
It's German. It's Alf Spannbeton.
Spannbeton.
Spannbeton. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a Rammstein song, but
Nice. Can you actually say my name, like Jose Birkin, but the German
Jose
way?
Birkin. Bierchen.
Yeah, like that's the stuff.
I mean, Bierchen. Yeah, it's kind of means little beer in German. So.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that my name actually means something else. I mean, today we are recording in the studio while Saz is away, and we're going to do another introduction episode with Alf. We've just been to the construction site, MTL City, as you know, and I would like to ask quite a few questions about the development, what we saw, etc. Your first impressions. So, what do you think of MTL City?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Mm-hmm.
It has a nice view there. It's warm country. It's like-minded people around you. So it's gonna be a wonderful community once it's finished.
Mm.
And right now, I mean, there's just two buildings there, and you can kind of imagine what it will be later.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
gonna be glorious. So
It's gonna be huge.
I want to be part of it. It's just, well, when you come late, you have to think a bit more about how you're gonna achieve that and what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term project for me to get out of Germany, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to explore, to see my options that I have, and well, we will see.
Yeah, you're more than welcome here, and you're more than welcome to buy a plot of land and actually start building your own house, or actually buying or renting one of those apartments in the townhouse. And there's going to be another one, as you've seen today. Right. You said that you would like to move out of Germany. You're originally from Germany, but what makes you move? What makes you want to move, I would say?
I mean, I have to go a little bit into detail, I guess. So
Sure.
I have a mathematical background. So what I see about human psyche is when you see you're on the slope up and you see it's getting better, then you're motivated to do something. So what happened with Germany is at some point, at least for people like me, it became stagnant. This country is stagnant and it's on the slope down. So what people are doing is they get more and more reliant on the government. They get complacent. I don't know. It's like it's a country that doesn't have drive. It's a country that is more, yeah, we're already good. Or like we are fine with ourselves. And then what happens is that they don't think about their community anymore. They don't think about how we can do better. They think only about like luxury problems.
Right.
And that's kind of what I don't like about this country. It's became less and less about community and about people. It became more and more about trees and fish. So the whole environmentalist movement, I kind of agree with the premise of it, but I don't agree with what they are doing. They get out of nuclear, they get out of coal, and they make everything in the country extremely expensive without thinking about the people. So what happened with Germany is it used to be a more or less, not really socialist, it's classical social democratic system, which you had market economy, but you also had some parts of socialism in there. So Germany tried to do the best of both worlds in the Cold War, and it kind of went fairly well with it. The problem what happened in the last years, so especially since the early 2000s, I think. What happened with the country is it became, in that way, stagnant. It became more interested in environmentalism instead of classical social democrats. So that maybe has to do with like the classical social democrat party in Germany breaking more or less apart after Gerhard Schröder did this reform on the job market, which kind of destroyed his party. So the classical Social Democrat Party usually had a voter potential of like 30-40% in the 80s, 70s, and they were always in a race with the conservatives, and the liberals were the kind of decider with which they want a coalition, and Germany went quite well with that. Then the Greens came into parliament, which initially they were kind of outcast. They were behaving weirdly hippies, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So later on, when the Greens were big enough, they did a coalition with the classical Social Democrats, and that was the undoing of the Social Democrat Party. There are two factors there, in my opinion, where that Gerhard Schröder was doing this the market reform and the welfare reform, and that a lot of people on the left didn't like that. So they made their own party, Die Linke, the left, which kind of takes away a lot of votes from them. And the Greens were also left enough that a lot of people went there. So the Social Democrat Party now is more, it still has more votes than the Greens, but it's kind of a Green Party too. So we don't really have this classical Social Democrat Party anymore. So what happened, the social system in Germany changed. So we used to have a deal. You pay your high taxes, you pay your social contributions, and you could live with that even as a liberal or even as a libertarian. You were like, okay, it's a bad thing. I don't want to pay for this, but you can accept this deal because you actually do get something back.
Right.
But what happened in the last years is the more the Greens get to say, the more they devalue all your assets. So they started with like, okay, your cars are not green enough. We're not going to allow them in the cities anymore. So 1 month to another, all the cars, which were previously like several thousand euros, they are worth nothing now. So they went all the way to Africa. Well, obviously buying a new car is very environmentally friendly. Next thing they did was raising energy prices by a factor of 2.
Oh.
They put taxes on gasoline more, and always was like saying, yeah, we help the environment and stuff. The problem is it didn't end up. It was never bound to that. So they didn't even end up in the environment, or it didn't end up in the roads, or it didn't end up in anything. It ended up in, well, social welfare. So they kind of blown it up. They invited a lot of people from other countries to Germany, which in the long term might still be beneficial for Germany because, well, Germany has a low birth rate and we need people in there. But right now, in the short term, we have to pay for them.
Yeah.
So the problem is with the Greens maybe is that they try to think long term, but they destroy everything in the short term. And they make everything really expensive in Germany. The contributions are getting up and up. And the latest thing that they did is they tried to push a law through parliament, which kind of forces everyone to change the heating system. So from next year on, if you put that was the original plan. It didn't go through that way because all the other parties were like, originally they didn't say anything, but then the media and people were like, protesting and we don't want that. So from next year on, if you have to put a new heating system in, if your heating system breaks, it has to be powered by 65% renewable energy. So that basically only left a heat pump. So with older houses, that's a real problem because older houses can't use heat pumps economically. So that meant, well, all the assets devalued by like again. 50 to 100,000 again. And a lot of people in Germany who are like more rational, more libertarian minded, they kind of want to get their assets out of there. Because this country, it's gone off the rails and it's going down.
Sad to hear that, actually. And you said that there are libertarian minded people in the country still. But are there any people, any leaders, any political parties that you would say you are represented by them?
No. I used to be in the classical Liberal Party just because it was the closest to what I was thinking. And the older I got, the more libertarian minded I got. So it used to be what I was thinking. Classical liberalism, the state kind of has a reason to be there. And well, I still think that some stuff that the state does, it does it for a reason. It's there for a reason. And you can do it similarly or you can do it differently, but it can show you where the underlying problems is. We can go back to MTL City later about that. But
definitely.
So I used to be part of this, and they are making too many compromises, and they are not. Well, you have to do that when you're in a coalition. You have to make compromises. But the feeling that you get is that they are still not interested enough in protecting your assets. So they are still more on the side of environmentalist climate activists, how they call themselves, than they are on the side of your investment and keeping your family above the water. And that is kind of what I feel about all the parties.
Why do you think they are so conformist these days? Why aren't there a lot of opposition parties?
It's a good question. It's kind of in Germany it feels pretty much it's more of the same. So maybe it's the media. I really don't know. The Germans generally are a very, very conformist society in the first place. So I don't know how far I should go with what I say about Germany, but I see a lot of Russians here, right? And
but there are lots of Germans as well.
Lots of Germans as well. But what I always say is that they are two really good people for being slaves in the country, in the world, and that's the Germans and the Russians, and that's for different reasons. The Germans, they like to follow rules, and they will enforce them. The Russians, they have just never been used to anything else. But the Russians, they at least fight against it with like corruption, or they trying to do their own way. Right? The Germans, on the other hand, they don't do that. The Germans, they follow the rules, and the rules are there to be followed to the letter. That's kind of the typical German behavior. And that is another thing that I really don't like about the country. It makes the country very, very organized. So everything really works well there. If you build a system there, it's like a well-oiled machine. So if you go to another country, people drive worse. It all has benefits as well, like those rule followings, right? But do the benefits outweigh? No.
Yeah. And you've traveled quite a lot, as I know. Are there any countries that are completely different from Germany?
Yeah, there's a lot of countries which are completely different. You don't have to go far. You can just go over the border to France. And
oh, really?
Yeah. They spend a lot more time on food compared to the Germans. So the Germans, they like to eat on the road. I mean, I'm like that as well. Like, it's like eating is not something I celebrate. It's something that I do to keep myself functional.
It's just fuel in your body.
Yeah, basically. So if I could plug myself into the power, I would do that. So that's the German way of. That's the reason actually Döner was invented in Berlin. So the story is that some Turkish immigrant came there and opened up a traditional Turkish restaurant. And he wondered why it was only Turkish people coming to him. And then he kind of looked at the Germans. They were eating every day. He thought, like, what are they doing? And then he saw, like, they took burgers or pommes frites, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that was what the Germans liked. They were going to work and then they were eating at that time, right?
Yeah.
So he invented Döner Kebab. So he opened up a bread, traditional Turkish bread, and just put salad and meat in there, and it became the most popular dish in Germany.
Yeah, I know.
So
surprisingly,
that's a funny story. So that's a difference. In France, they take a lot of time eating and they celebrate it, and that's a whole different culture. Just across the border. That's the amazing thing about Europe. Even inside Germany, there's so many small different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one homogeneous state.
Yep.
There is Bavaria. There is Schleswig-Holstein. There is like all the different kind of little cultures there. So it's the same as France. It's different in the north than it's in the south. So
Right.
yeah, the Spanish, for example, completely different culture again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
That's siestas in the afternoon.
Everything is closed for 1 hour of the day. Everything, sometimes 2. It depends.
Right. Yeah.
So whenever they feel like going back to the shop, they open it. So that would never fly in Germany. It's like
Yeah, I mean, you could try, but you will fail. If you remember your first impression of Montenegro, like, was it more like France and Spain, or?
a little. When I first came to Montenegro, I was on the way back to Germany from a trip through half of Europe, basically.
Uh-huh.
So we went all the way down to Turkey and then spent some time in Greece. And then we said we've never been to the Balkans and we have some friends here, so why not go there? So when I came here, we were already thinking like, yeah, we want to, or I mostly want to go out of Germany, and trying to find a place. So we came here and we immediately fell in love with the place. It's beautiful view. It has the sea, and it's a mix between Russia and Germany. That's kind of what I see. It's pardon for what I say next, not as fucked up as Russia in a way. But it's also not as restrictive and close-minded as Germany is. So you have the drivers, which are perfectly in the middle. So in Germany, you can let your kids out play on the street because drivers drive more or less responsibly. Well, there is the occasional drunk driver and that, but police is fairly behind that, so it works. Just driving in Germany, it's kind of one of the safest experiences that you can have. Driving in any other country, maybe except the Northern European ones, you feel people are more egoistic. They don't think ahead. Like German drivers usually think ahead what's going to happen in the next minute. And over here, I don't see that at all. People are thinking only about themselves and want to get there fast, and they maybe want to die. I don't know, but and
that's the plan.
It's even worse in Russia.
Oh.
What I saw there, I was driving there, and it's like people have a death wish for some reason. It's like you have 5 meters before the truck comes, and you still want to overtake someone. It's like why?
Because we're always in a rush. Because if it's Moscow you've been to, then it kind of makes sense. Or any big city, in fact. Because we're always like, we never have enough time, and we always need to haste. So it's funny how you said it, because I always like I kind of had an impression of Russia being more organized compared to Montenegro. Because here, for example, I've heard stories of bus drivers, getting off because they've seen someone they know, and they would have a conversation with them, even though there are people waiting, like passengers are waiting, and they would not care. Like they would need to talk with this person, right? Because they've seen them. It's like a village, right? And everyone is sort of chill.
It's fair. I guess, is it maybe a difference between a big city in Russia and this? I mean, rural Russia, I haven't been to. I mean, I've been driving through Altai Mountains, so yeah, that was nice. That was nice. So, but I haven't taken a bus there, so I would imagine it's fairly similar there. I mean, the table is not something use the timetable, right? It's like something. No, it's
work.
not gonna work. It's like roughly plus minus half an hour. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So yeah, you've got the logic already. Well, so what brings you here apart from your friends actually who said, "Oh, that's a nice place. Why not go here?" Like, have you heard of Montelibero before?
Actually, only from the friends. They said, "Well, we are part of an
A cult.
Part of a cult. Yeah, pay me all your money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then
That's how we like it.
and then exploitation.
Yeah,
in
that's the most libertarian
several
way.
ways. Yeah, that's how libertarians work. Apparently, no. They said they were part of a libertarian community, and I said like I'm interested because I have that political mindset. So
Right.
yeah, we'll have a look at it, and I want to get to know some people here anyway because I want to move either here or to another place that's out of Germany, and why not try to find out how it is living here for a while and try to get to know some people, try to think about opportunities.
Right. And do you see yourself working here, or would you prefer to work remotely? Because most people do.
Yeah, ideally remotely. I have worked in IT. I have a degree in mathematics, so
Yeah.
I could do that.
You have the privilege of actually
The
doing
privilege.
this.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
privilege. I mean, one thing I still have to calculate is if it makes sense, maybe I'm on the fence about this to still pay a certain amount of tax in Germany to still be able to use the social system in a way. So especially health insurance, which is something that I heard is fairly hard to deal with in this country. So that's another topic I want to discuss. It's a thing trying to benefit from multiple angles.
Thank you for sharing your impressions, especially of MTL City, and you're more than welcome to actually join us there. And since you're a libertarian and since you're a resident of the first club of Montelibero, I see no reason why I shouldn't be there. Exactly.
Thank you.
It's the second time we're recording. We've decided to do a little experiment this time, and we decided to sort of break it into two parts. In the first part, we mainly talked about your experience of living in Germany, what you like and what you especially don't like about Germany, about the political system in Germany. And we sort of compared Germany, Russia, and Montenegro, some other countries such as Italy and Spain that, for example, are a little bit fussier when it comes to eating, and they really like to take their time, to take it slow.
Yeah, different cultures.
Yeah, exactly. And this time we're recording after, I guess, a couple of weeks.
I think it's about
Wait.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Maybe 1 week.
or 1 week. I don't know.
Okay.
You would
So-
have to look at the timestamps.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Exactly. Especially if you are in Montelibero. And I would like to ask you a few questions about the expectations of the community, because that was probably the first time or maybe the second time when you were in the club. And now that you've met so many other people, you've seen our community, you kind of understand a little bit what it's about and what it's like. So can you tell me about like the expectation versus reality kind of thing? Are you still up for it?
I'm still up for it. I still like it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, when you're in a place a little bit longer, you start to see the negatives as well. You don't only see the positives. So that is what there's some stuff that I started to notice, but I'm still very much up for it.
Right. And again, in spite of the fact that Alf speaks German and English and just very, very little Russian, as I understand.
chut.
Exactly. Just in case if you're listening to this and you don't speak any Russian, that means a little bit. And that didn't prove to be a barrier. It wasn't.
I mean, it is a
problem at all.
barrier. Of course it is. I mean, there always is a language barrier, but that shouldn't stop you. So
Well, I remember us, going for a swim late at night. Gregory, Grinia, myself, and of course you. And I remember how late at night we would just drink beer and you were talking, and I was just translating for you on top of.
yeah, that was funny.
It was a lot of fun. And technically, if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, if you really want to talk with someone, you will find a way to talk with them.
Yeah,
There's
and
Google Translate.
That's
at
kind of the point. Even before Google Translated worked.
least. Uh-huh.
I mean,
we didn't have that. When did it start that we really have that in our pockets? Right? I mean, when I did hitchhiking in 2011, we didn't. So I was traveling through Europe. I was somewhere in Slovakia, and I didn't speak a word of Slovakian. But all right, like I just use my hands and kind of make weird noises, and it kind of worked, you know.
You ended up in hospital.
No.
Mental hospital.
I wanted to stay at the highway, but the people didn't understand me and drove me to the next train station. But they were meaning well, so
Okay.
stuff like that. It kind of makes up for good stories. So that's kind of something that's also lost a little bit. I mean, sure, it's less language barrier, but it used to be a source of amazing stories, not being able to understand people and then end up in some weird random place. So
do you think libertarians are a little bit more adventurous than the rest of the crowd?
oh, definitely.
Really?
Yeah, you
Also?
have to be.
Why?
You have to be.
Because there are family people, with kids and everything, and they're thought to be more conservative.
Yeah, but I don't know. This whole self-organization thing, you have to take a certain amount of risk, and you have to be able to do stuff yourself. So that means you think for yourself, and you don't do what others say. And it's kind of an overlap with adventurism, because both types of group people, they don't do what is told and what is.
Yeah, they kind of think out of the box in the first place. They already, try to test reality and what is allowed and what is not allowed, like where the line goes and try to cross the line sometimes just to see if it works.
Right, and there is a lot of entrepreneurial spirit here. So people trying to find out what can I do to benefit the community, and in best case also earn money with that. So
yep, that's the plan.
And that is something that I don't see in quote unquote normal society. It's all just like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
You go study, work for 40 years, and then go and die. And no.
I mean, yeah, you're gonna die anyway, so
of course. I mean,
why waste your time, waste your life on something that you never liked anyway?
Yeah,
Makes
exactly.
sense.
Why do that?
Okay. Do you think there are any other features that libertarians possess that sort of make them different, make them stand out?
Yeah, good question. Let me think about that. I mean, apart from this open-mindedness that you need to have.
Because a lot of people actually say, oh, I don't really think there is any one just underlying feature that would unite libertarians. If anything, yeah, they all aspire freedom or whatever.
Yeah, they're all very individualistic.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you don't have underlying trends. So that's something that I hear often in conversation when I mean, I'm a mathematician, so I'm kind of a guy who thinks in broad concepts, and often I hear, yeah, but you can't say that it's all depends on the individual. Yes, it does. Big but. There's still underlying trends, and there is still something that you can say about it. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to talk about something on the individual level. So if you want to talk about society, it doesn't make sense to talk about individuals because there's so many of them. It's kind of, you try to explain a car accident by using quantum physics. It technically would work if you had all the information, but there it already starts that doesn't work because quantum physics doesn't allow that. So it kind of makes sense to do that on a more macroscopic level. And I think there's a strange aversion with people to do that on a societal level, to talk about underlying trends. And, well, I don't know where that comes from.
I get it. It just seems to me that we're so different that maybe there aren't any features other than our aspiration for freedom that would unite us, under one roof.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, yeah, if you really want to capture all people, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you would make a societal study about this, you would probably find out some correlations which are fairly significant.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard about people who there's those traits like the ocean test and they found out that specific political directions have specific traits on a personal level. So
most of the people living here are in their 30s, which probably makes them a little bit immature, some would say, maybe even infantile, maybe a little bit like childish to think that they can change the world. Maybe it's something that you would expect a 14-year-old to say, but not someone who is in their 30s who already has a family. Do you think this will pass? Do you think you will change in 10 years' time?
Me, certainly. I've changed a lot. And a former friend of mine said to me once, like, I see you half a year later and you're a completely different person.
Really? What changes you usually?
Usually experience. I mean, I don't think it's that bad, but usually experience. And I'm a guy who either makes a lot of experience or none at all. So
all or nothing. I see. Okay, a very libertarian way, I guess.
So yeah, of course, I'm gonna change, and there is stuff that happened in my life, which I didn't expect even a year ago. So yeah, of course, I'm gonna be different in 10 years. I'm 100% sure about that.
But do you think you will end up being more conservative, maybe settling for less than you would expect now? You would say, oh, okay, actually, Germany is not that bad of a state.
It's technically possible. But I mean, I can't say that is impossible, but I would say it's far away. So yeah, there's certain things that I see, like certain positives as well.
Right.
But it is the underlying trends, the underlying principles of Germany that I really don't like. So I was dreaming of moving out of this country. I mean, I didn't really know it in school, but even in school, I had discussions with a girl right next to me, and she was ultra green, and I was already, well, I considered myself liberal back in the time, and it was endless discussions. And it was funny because imagine some 15-year-olds constantly discussing about politics. So
it's not something that a 15-year-old would probably do. I mean, like, you wouldn't expect them to in any case.
Yeah. Usually no, but
right.
that worked, and it was kind of a love-hate relationship that I had with this girl. It was like, yeah, I hate your politics, but you're kind of cool too.
Oh, okay. But I like your pink hair and
your
rings.
Kind of that, yeah.
Because like, I can imagine the type. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I'm just stereotyping.
She had dreadlocks, yeah. And
okay,
kind
cool,
of a little bit hippie
right.
girl. But
yeah.
I mean,
I can imagine. Right. Do you think we'll be able to agree with, green activists? Will we be able to reach a consensus of some sort?
On an individual level, maybe. I mean, they're still people.
Right.
And they still have their own desires, and they probably also want a family at some point, and they just see the world in a completely different way. And yeah, maybe they wouldn't agree with our, like, I want to live and, like, leave me alone with saving the planet. I can't save it anyway, and I don't even want to. And if at all, it kind of makes sense to use technology, which is, well, obviously that is the way forward. And those guys, they want more consume less, and
Mhm.
which, I mean, I'm not too far away from that. I mean, I can consume not that much,
Right.
but I don't want anyone to force me to.
Yeah.
That's
Like to buy a new
it.
car or
It's like,
something
yeah,
because
it's exactly. It's like, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with my old car. Thank you. I don't need to buy a new one because you think it's not environmentally friendly. It's like, yeah, it's much worse for the environment in the first place if I buy a new car. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, they do sort of think far into the future, as you said. Like they mean well,
right,
but
yeah,
in the long term perspective.
yeah, that's kind of their thing. They want to think long term, but the problem with long term thinking is the further you go into the future, the more inaccurate your prediction becomes, and they don't have all the variables. They don't really know what's gonna happen in the future. So maybe technology finds a way, and it's fairly certain that at some point it will. And there is stories about, like, in the medieval age, they were planting trees in your grandfather's generation, right? And then you can harvest them. That's where all this, like, how is it called in English? In German, it's Nachhaltigkeit. This kind of green economy where you constantly plant something new.
Okay, like renewable resources, sustainable,
Yeah.
sustainable
This is a
economy.
This whole of this comes from basically forestry, right? And they were cutting down a tree to make some longbows, and then they planted a new one because it takes 80 years to grow until you can use it. So it kind of makes sense, because otherwise the army of the future won't have a bow. So, okay. Well, if you think that way, it kind of makes sense to think that way, right? Big but. At some point they invented the gun, and all the forests were useless.
Yeah.
So, and that's a pattern with humanity. Like, whenever you hit a roadblock, you invent something new. And maybe we should try to harness that instead of forcing everyone to plant new trees.
Yeah, that's one way. But I'm afraid that it's not the technology that might be a problem, because technology will always develop, keep developing, hopefully, in spite of all the restrictions from governments. It's the freedom of speech that might suffer, and in the long run, your voice will be like drowned in millions of other voices that would say, like, you can't really say that. There's censorship, just like what we have these days already. And if you don't agree with the people who think this is the only way, then your opinion will not be taken into consideration in the first place. And even though there is some technology to solve a problem, you will not be in the majority, and so you will end up just
you mean
following.
they will bury it?
Sort of, yeah.
Well, it's certainly a possibility.
So, how do you imagine the world of future in terms of censorship? Will there be more censorship on TV, in real life, etc.?
Yes. If I would try to pick a year to compare to, I think we're a little bit past the golden 20s.
Oh,
It's going bad, and we can see the trends going on in international politics. And it's like everything's getting more authoritarian. There is more wars. There is more conflict, and it's not something I'm optimistic about. Freedom of speech is going away, more authoritarianism. We had that before.
Yep.
Do we really have to do that experiment again?
Well, I guess we didn't learn our lessons. But how do we resist that? Can we even do this?
Wow, that's a good question. You can try to be the best person, and still something happens. So it's like, I think you can do your best for your local community, and well, you have to hope for the best on the big scheme, because the big scheme is out of the reach. That's certainly. I mean, you can do something as a bigger group, and even as an individual, if you are lucky and you get the reach, but it's not something to strive for because it's fairly unrealistic.
But if we joined our forces with some other free cities and intentional communities, do you think would have a say in that? Do you think would be able to sort of sway the general opinion in different directions?
General opinion, no.
Okay.
At least not from my German perspective. You're not going to sway the general opinion. What you will do is recruit a lot of people. A lot of people who are kind of fed up with how it's going on,
right,
and want to be left alone and do their own thing. And that's kind of the magic of this place. Like you're among people who all kind of think similar, and they all want to live their life, and they're all struggling together. And that is what makes you fall in love with this place.
Yeah, well said, well said. And this is something that I've heard many times from different residents and non-residents alike. The value of the places and the people and the community itself, and no matter where you are, you will always, be heard, and you can generate ideas inside the community, and you can actually start something new, hopefully, and become that beacon of hope, for those people who try to think different, who think there's something wrong with the general, like, streamlined and sort of sanitized version of
it's sometimes
reality.
hard to voice it, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like there's some mist in your brain, which is like there's something wrong in there.
Exactly. Yes.
But, like how to explain this, like this feeling.
But you can't really talk to anyone because no one would probably hear you, would be able to understand that, okay, yeah, there is wrong. There is something wrong. Maybe because people are brainwashed, because they've been in the system for too long, and it's very difficult for them to like.
No, I think it goes even deeper than that.
Oh, okay.
I heard it recently that we were talking about correlation between personal traits and politics, and I heard recently that people identify with their politics as well, and I think the political system kind of wants you to. So they identify with their political beliefs, and if you criticize it, you attack them personally.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why political discussions, like when you go to a family meeting, you don't talk about politics and religion, and that's kind of the reason why, I guess. Because there is nothing better than a good political discussion. I mean, I had a lot of friends back in the day who were not of the same opinion, and it was always interesting discussions, and in the end we always came to a conclusion. But that's something that you can only do with people who don't really identify with it.
Yeah, and who are able to hear other people, the other side of the story, that kind of thing. Because like most people are conformist in a way that they really like to be agreed with, I guess, and surrounded by like-minded people, and it's this fear that you're the only one with a different opinion that kind of makes you think twice before you actually open your mouth in the first place, I guess.
Well, it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right?
Yep. So basically, we're not just fighting the governments; we're also fighting evolution. Okay, good luck to us.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. Okay. We're fighting evolution. We're fighting the government, and it's kind of we're fighting death in the
Oh, definitely.
So yeah.
Yes, because we want to live the way we do. And we don't want other people to tell us what we are supposed to and what we're not supposed to do, which is why we're here, right? We're all immigrants in this country.
Doesn't mean that there's no rules.
Of course.
That's kind of a misconception that people have.
No. What I mean is like that we also decide. We get to decide what the rules are going to be, and we live by them. Right. Do you see yourself in Montelibero in, I don't know, 3 years' time or 5 years' time?
I wish. It's, I mean, I can't make the decision alone.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish. I like the community. I like the country.
Yeah, the country's great. It's so beautiful.
I mean, there's some negatives as well. I mean, from what I say, all these mosquitoes, and certainly you need AC every day, and
it's way too hot.
Yeah, and I saw some recently when we were walking to the supermarket, right? That there's the big generator outside of the supermarket, and that is something that showed me like, okay, the power grid might not be as stable as it looked like.
Yep.
And like all the small details you don't notice in the first days, but you notice them after some time. So recently, one other resident hurt his foot, and we had to go to the local clinic. And I was like, what is this? So, okay. You can see the health system here is also not 100% perfect. So, what you gonna do about that? And so you need to find your way around it. So that's what I heard from other residents as well, that they have their own kit ready. And so that's... Oh, you guys are Russians, so you probably know how it is in a country like that. So,
I mean, medicine is, I would say in Russia, medicine is so much better still than here.
Or the private clinics, absolutely.
Not sure about the private clinics because they are few and far between, like they're not very common. But the ones that I've been to in Russia are really, really nice.
Oh, you've been to the public ones?
I've been to both. Because well, like as a Russian, I am insured, and of course, back in the days when I was a student, I would go to
the public ones,
public clinics,
sure.
and they're really nice. I would say in Moscow even, because they do spend a lot of money on that. But of course, if I had the choice where to go, when to go, I would definitely do that. Even back in the days. But what I wanted to say is that you've probably seen this country from both sides now, right? Both as a tourist and as someone who can see themselves living there.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to see, I guess.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So it's like, I think I got the first glimpse behind the curtain.
Okay.
And that's where you can see, like, okay, it's not everything is that clean. People don't really care about doing things properly.
Oh yeah.
So if you look at the roads, for example, like you build it in that way that the heat, and then the truck comes and like it goes to the sides and like sure. That is something that wouldn't happen in Germany because, well, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and that's what one guy said, like, this is the German way of doing things right the first time. I mean, well, it takes 5 years longer, but it works in the end. That's kind of the idea behind it, I guess. I mean, I don't agree with that, but
true.
So,
and what's good about living in the country is that you will be surrounded by not only like-minded people, but also those veterans who have been there, who have seen it all, who can give you lots of advice. And this is why we urge you to come over and see if you're going to like it here. And we are ready to give you some advice, any help you need to help you settle down and actually consider moving here permanently. So this is something that I would like you to take away from today's conversation, that it's not all over yet, that your life is not like predetermined, that you can change it, and you can change it, to a more positive, in a more positive way, because what do you have to lose after all, right? You can always come back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alf Spannbeton, for joining me today in the studio. I hope we hear more from you, and I know that you're leaving, so wish you good luck on your journey, but please come back.
Oh, I definitely will.
Right. We really loved your company here. Really, like you've become one of the, those residents that are, the soul of the company, as we say in Russia. So yeah, thank you. And this was Birkin. Please join us in our future episodes, and you can share and like and subscribe and follow. You know the routine. Thank you. See ya.
See you.
Bye.